Welcome to Daily Dose Radio, a 5-minute devotional podcast studying the Psalms verse by verse. Broadcast from the ever-beautiful Sharonville, Ohio, on the sunny side of Cincinnati. Welcome back to Daily Dose Radio. This is your home for organic, artisanally made Bible study. And if you're listening to this every day, then you're a regular listener. You know what we need? We need a code name for our regular listeners. I don't know what we would call you. I'm horrible with names anyway. But thanks for listening to DDR today. Today we're looking at verses 6 and 7. 6 and 7 in Psalm 124. Now we've seen this prayer of the past. If the Lord were not for us when men rose up against us, then they would have swallowed us alive. And so we've had this recitation really of past blessing, how the Lord has done His work to keep Israel. Now I think we come to sort of a present prayer. This is a prayer prayed by the psalmist in his present distress. And again, I emphasize, don't know what that is, but this is a part of the Ascent Psalm, so this is a prayer that they're making as they approach Jerusalem and the temple before they're preparing to worship. Let me read for you from my translation verses 6 and 7. Bless, O Lord, do not give us as prey for their teeth. Our soul like the bird, may it slip away. The trap, may it break in pieces, and we will slip away. That's verses 6 and 7. Now you notice we have sort of a contrast created for us here in verse 6. We have blessing on one hand and pray on the other hand. That is P-R-E-Y, pray. Not prayer, but prey, as in the prey of the lion or the prey of the beast. So, bless, O Lord, do not give us as prey. So the blessing of God is called upon, and they're asking for the Lord to do something so that they don't wind up as prey for the teeth of who? The insolent that were mentioned in verse 5. So, pray for the teeth, that's the idea of the lion. The lion comes in and he carries about his victim in his jaws, and so the teeth of the lion have this prey in them. And this reminds me somewhat of the Lord's Prayer. You remember the Lord's Prayer, we have that section where the Lord Jesus taught us to pray, lead us not into temptation, but deliver us from evil. And then follows right on the end of that is, for thine is the kingdom, the power, and the glory forever. What happens here is the Lord glorifies Himself as He blesses His people with deliverance. And then verse 7, our soul like the bird, may it slip away. The trap, may it break in pieces. Have you remember in the early part of the Psalter, we had so many psalms that talked about the trap of the wicked, how they were laying traps for the poor man, how they were laying traps for the righteous man, how they were digging pits for the feet of those who were walking in the way of the Lord. Again, we come back to this whole thing of traps, and our soul is like a bird. And when the bird flits away, then it's free. If it's gone from the trap, then it's free. And that's what he's saying here, break the trap. So the blessing of the Lord is, don't give us as prey, but then the active part of the prayer is, break in pieces the trap. Because they've laid a trap, a snare for our soul. Again, it's a soulish. This is not necessarily physical. Of course, there can be physical traps and pits. But this is the attack of the enemy spiritually on the people. And why would the enemy be attacking spiritually? Well, because they're headed to worship. They're going to the place where the Lord is found. And they're going to worship there. And the enemy wants to do the exact opposite for them. He wants to take them into despair, drag them away, keep them from worshiping. He doesn't want them to find the blessing of the Lord. He doesn't want them to call on Him, and He doesn't want the trap broken. So He has to trap them to keep them from going there. But the prayer is, on the way, break the trap, that we might flee, that our souls might, like a bird, fly off and slip away. Okay, I hope you'll join me tomorrow. We're going to look at something very familiar tomorrow in verse 8. So join me then on Daily Dose Radio. Thanks for listening to Daily Dose Radio. I'm David Smith. The music today has been performed by the Bluegrass Experiment. Thanks again for listening. I'll see you next time on Daily Dose Radio.